is trying to
Get above the water.
Ngā whakaronga mai,
You're in survival.
tēnā koutou katoa. I think we will begin our council meeting, and first of all, a very warm welcome to Mike, who I think is there. There he is at the, Mike, my apologies for not being able to be there to greet you. Unfortunately, I tested positive for, very faintly, but tested positive for COVID this morning. So I'm not, so I am self-isolating. But listen, we are so delighted that you were able to join us for an in-person meeting, so that at least those people in the room are going to be able to farewell you. And I know they're going to do that over drinks and nibbles. And thank you so much for joining us for this council meeting. And I apologize for its late start, but we are going to now, we're going to march through it rapidly. So I'm going to begin by asking whether there are any disclosures of interest by members for anything going to be considered today. And I'm going to take silence as no. Then I'm going to move to the conferment of degrees. So by the authority vested in me by resolution of the University of Auckland Council, I, Cecilia Tarrant, Chancellor, confer the degrees stated upon those who within their several faculties have satisfied the requirements of this university. We then move to the minutes. Are there any comments on the minutes of Part A from the 14th of March? If there are not, I will move them that they be taken as read and confirmed. Could I have a seconder, please? I'll take, thank you, I'll take Jonathan from the room. Right, then with respect to matters arising, I think this, this was raised earlier in the briefings, and Dawn, you were going to comment on this, that we will get the kōtuitanga is going to be brought to the next council meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chancellor. So the covenant with Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei, we were ready to sign it off with the seal, but Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei through Michael Steedman are wanting to make some tweaks, which we're in the process of doing. And so we've deferred its bringing forward to council for endorsement until the June council meeting.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, then we'll move to the Vice-Chancellor's report. So over to you, Vice-Chancellor.
Thank you, Chancellor. And as always, I'll take the report as read and just highlight one or two things. So in the general section of my report, we are seeing some progress now with international students starting to be able to make their applications and transit across the border. And you'll see from my report that there is a remote chance that the date could be brought forward for international students from October. In fact, some of the intelligence that we now have is that there is a softening of the willingness for larger student numbers to be entering the country before the end of the year. That's always been the message that we've been getting from the Ministry of Education. The sticking point has been in the past the Health Ministry, and that's now moved on, of course. So the final part of that triangulation is the immigration reset and whether or not we're actually going to see any movement there. What we do know, of course, is that immigration at the moment is completely overwhelmed and not turning things around very rapidly. And so even if there is a move to allow additional students into the country before October, it's likely that it's going to take some while to process the visa applications. Having said that, we're moving in the right direction. On the other matter under general that is probably something just to touch on, you'll have seen in the report from Senate that Senate met again to talk about our free speech policy. Peter Hunter is leading this with a team of academic staff on behalf of the Vice-Chancellor. And we're continuing with that work and continuing to look at it in the context of academic freedom. You will have seen the outcome of the Royal Society review. And of course, we are aware now of the Free Speech Union survey, which was also reported on in the media and which we've had a copy of in terms of the results and findings. Although the survey wasn't a large survey in terms of the response rate, it was interesting just to see where things were settling in terms of academics' understanding of free speech. The QS rankings is a success story. We continue to improve. Council will recall that we brought the ranking strategy to Council and we'll be reporting on it at the end of the year in our December meeting. But I just would like to flag that with the QS rankings improving, we cannot talk about this today, but there's an embargoed notice that will come out tomorrow, and that is related to the Times Higher Innovation and Impact Summit and our rankings in that, which I can at least say we are very pleased with the outcome. So we're looking forward to making that statement later on this week. In terms of the internal update, and I did just want to flag this to Council, of course, it's wonderful that we're able to be back on campus from May the 2nd, from the post-mid-semester break, and for staff and students to really start to enjoy the dynamic and vital experience that we're able to offer on campus. Having said that, of course, there are staff and students who are concerned around the dropping of restrictions, not so much the vaccine mandate, but our regulations and restrictions on mask wearing. And I'm just working through a process with the IMT and with some of our experts in the university at the moment, so as to ensure that the message that goes out on Thursday in my all staff email to staff really addresses the balance of making sure that we're not going to be creating super spreader events on the campus, but we are actually going to really be moving forward in terms of living within Orange and beyond that. So I do want to acknowledge that. And the final thing I'd like to acknowledge is that since my report, the item under harmful sexual behaviours, there was another report in the media at the weekend in relation to the outcome of the discipline hearing, the discipline committee. You will know as a council that I've initiated an independent review of our disciplinary processes around student sexual harm, sexual assault. And I'm very pleased to say that we're moving very rapidly into the drafting of the terms of reference and that we're starting that process in earnest. I think I'll leave it at that, except to say there's, of course, within the report, the usual reporting against our progress on strategic priorities. And I'm looking forward to sharing with Council at the next meeting an update on some of those in detail, particularly on the curriculum transformation. Happy to take questions, Chancellor.
Thank you, Dawn. Are there any questions for Dawn?
Just a comment really on the harmful sexual behaviour, Dawn. Yeah, it really does speak to the need. Really pleased we're doing that review, but it really does speak to the need to have a cohesive and holistic approach to these issues across the university. And ensure that we have a team, potentially somebody that's a team that is accountable for dealing with them. So there are multiple places these things can crop up and multiple touch points that the students or people involved in those incidents may have at the university, and trying to link them all together. I see that as the chair of the appeals committee sometimes, where paths just haven't quite been as clear as they might have been. So very pleased to see us taking a decent approach there.
Thank you, Rachel.
Great. Okay. All right. If there are no further questions, I will move that the report be noted and perhaps ask you to second that, Rachel. Thank you. So now I'm moving to the reports of council committees, and we have the report of the Student Appeals Committee. Rachel, is there any comment you wanted to make about that report? It looks fairly self-evident.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate case, but I think the disciplinary committee reached a correct conclusion. That's what we ended.
Are there any questions for Rachel around that report? If not, I'll move that report be noted. And perhaps Kathy, I can ask you to second that. Thank you. And then we'll move to Senate matters. Now, I don't know if Bridget, if there's any comment you want to make on these, or Vice Chancellor or Jim. Bridget.
Nothing from my perspective, Chancellor. It was fairly straightforward.
I think the only comment I would make, Chancellor, is that the work of the Senate review is still underway. Penny Matthew is working through that process, and we're having a panel discussion at the next Senate to just really engage with Senate on Senate's role. And it's going to become ever more important because of the focus and the emphasis on really attempting to understand the way in which free speech, academic freedom, the code of conduct articulate with some of the other agendas that we're driving through the curriculum transformation, the learner success plan, thinking about the disability action plan. We really need Senate to be engaged in these matters because that's where we can get some traction on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have had, Kath and I had a good conversation with Penny around sort of where Senate sat relative to council, and she was, sort of discussing what perhaps council needed from Senate and what Senate needed from council to go into that review. Are there any questions around any of the Senate matters? Right, I will.
Sorry, just a comment that I thought they're far more digestible than they were 12 months ago. So thank you very much for the efforts that have been made on that in that place. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Absolutely. That's good work on behalf of the team. Thank you, team.
So I'm going to move that that the recommendations in Part A of the report of Senate be adopted and Part C be noted. And could I perhaps, Rajan, would you like to second that?
Yep.
Thank you very much. There has been no correspondence to the Chancellor. It needs to be referred to Council. We then have a list of documents to which the seal has been attached since the last meeting. I think that's actually just one deed of lease. It sort of sounds long, but it's just one document. So I'll move that the affixing of the seal to the listed document be noted. And perhaps Kath, you can second that for me. Thank you very much. Is there any general business for Part A? Okay, if there is no general business, then I will move that the public be excluded from Part B of the meeting, but that Adrian Clenning and Professors Linton and Metz and Andrew Phipps, Tim Blewett, Pamela Moss, Todd Somerville, Helen Katanich, Anthony Brandon, Wendy Visharan, and of course Mike Daniel be permitted to remain for Part B of the meeting. And we'll close Part A of the meeting and ask Anthony to stop. Linton and Metz and Andrew Phipps, Tim Blewett, Pamela Moss, Todd Somerville, Helen Katanich, Anthony Brandon, Wendy, like recording Wendy is off. Sharon. So we'll go to Mike Daniel be permitted to remain for Part B of the meeting. Council meeting. And I have there the meeting.